Hey, Colabcoach here yet again to share some wise words of wisdom for the week number 2 of the anxiety series. So excited to get into this week. Last week I was vulnerable. I talked about my anxiety and what I had to go through. And I talked about exactly what anxiety was in the first place, at least from my definition. But this week we're going a little bit deeper. So without any further delay, the question slash thought I have for you this week is, what does anxiety look like to you? What does anxiety look like to you? Because the reason why I ask this question is because just because we have a general definition of something doesn't mean the definition is not different for everybody else. Just because it's a general definition doesn't mean that it affects you exactly that way. It may affect you maybe 50% of that definition or 100%. It just depends on the person. And even with that, anxiety looks different for everybody because each person is different. But we'll get into that. We'll go a little bit deeper into that. I don't want to throw a whole bunch of stuff at you right away. So, anxiety is, as I said last week, is that feeling of intense pressure, feeling of intense worriness and fear that starts to take over your life, and it feels like it has control over your life. For me, I feel that when I feel overwhelmed and I have so much things going on. But for you listening and maybe watching, all that good stuff, or sharing this with somebody, you may have anxiety for something as simple as you waking up late because your alarm didn't go off. That's anxiety because now it messes up the order of your day. Or it could be something as big as you having a full-fledged panic attack and you had to go to the hospital. As I said last week, panic attacks is when you feel like you're having a heart attack, but physically that you're not having a heart attack. It's your emotions telling you that you're having a heart attack when it's a panic attack because of something that has triggered you. Now, I can't tell you that you waking up late because of your alarm clock is not anxiety. Whereas in the same way, I can't tell you that just because you had a panic attack, that's not anxiety. That could be something else. This is all you. This is your life. It is what you define as anxiety. It's what you define as something that's not good. When things are great and you're enjoying yourself, you can have a great day and you can express, I did this today, I did that today. Or when there are things that you are happy to talk about, that's simple. But when things get tough, when you are having a panic attack or having anxiety and the words are not coming out, the way you describe it may be different from somebody else that said they had anxiety, and you start to diminish your feelings because, okay, this is not anxiety, maybe I'm just having a bad day. Talk about it. Talk about it, describe it, and address it as much as you can, because this is what the problem comes. The problem comes is when you start to feel these emotions and you start to and it starts to weigh on you and it starts to become more and more and more, and you're like, okay, well, this is not anxiety, so what is it? And then you start to self-medicate, or you start to do things that are not helpful for you, or you start listening to people with bad advice, and you start to not see yourself growing from that situation and healing from that situation. When you start to eventually go deeper down that pit of those emotions until the point when it becomes unbearable. I would hate for anybody watching this or listening to this, wherever it may be, that you are at the point of a bottomless pit and you feel like there's no way of you getting out or getting rescued or freed. That's why you have to constantly, and I'm going to say constantly, talk about your emotions. Now, I know there's a stigma, there's a stereotype that men don't talk about their emotions, but if you really listen to men, they do talk about their emotions, but just in different ways. They may not come out directly and say, hey, I'm having a bad day, A, B, C, D. They may say, well, this was a little bit tougher for me today. This was a little bit more strenuous than me today. Whereas usually it would be something very simple. Or today I completely shut down at work, or I completely shut down to having a conversation with someone because it just became too much. And they can't describe it. If you can't say that this is anxiety, that's okay. But if you can say that you're not feeling good today, or something is not something did not go the way you thought it was, and now you feel bad about it, or you feel like you're worrying and you're fearful about whatever it may be, that's expressing your anxiety. You might not label it as anxiety. It's just now pop culture. It's just now in our society that we're actually talking about mental health. So what was anxiety today may be someone shutting down back then, or it may be something like people, like older people will describe as, oh, there's something off. There's something not right about how you're feeling and things like that. Talk about these emotions so that when you do have a conversation with someone that knows that it's anxiety, they can say, okay, I think you're having an anxiety moment, or you're feeling anxious, or you're having a panic attack, or you're feeling depressed. You might not know the titles, but you know the emotions. You know how it makes you feel. You know how it stops your day. You know how it starts to plague your thoughts. You know how it affects you on a day-to-day basis. Talk about it. So when you're looking at it for your own view, and you're like, okay, well, I don't really understand what anxiety really is. I don't really understand what's going on. But the feelings that I'm feeling is something that's too much. We tend to live our lives, and people tend to say that there's good days, bad days. There's a lot of gray area. Life is nothing but gray area. Talk about those gray areas, because the problem comes is that we only highlight the good things or the really bad stuff. There's a lot of middle that we don't talk about, and that's what I wanted to shed light on. Those gray areas, the times when you can't label it, the times when you can't express it, the times when you feel like it's not as important as someone else's, or it doesn't match the definition of what someone else is telling you. Talk about all those times, because those are the key moments in your life that will help you from reaching the place of healing, or just push you down deeper into those emotions. I would hate for you to go deep in your emotions because you thought that you couldn't describe it because it was something that wasn't important to someone else. If you've described it to someone and they didn't take it seriously, or they couldn't agree with how you're feeling, take it to somebody else. As I said in the last video, if you go to a therapists don't work, try to find another therapist. Keep going. If you feel like therapy is not, you're not at the level of therapy yet, go to a coach. If you go to a coach and it doesn't work out, go to another coach to see if it'll work out. If you feel like coaching and therapy is not for you, maybe you don't have enough money, maybe your insurance, go talk to a pastor, or talk to a spiritual elder, or the wise person. Go talk to some, or a friend that you know that you can talk to. Not just going there to vent, but actually asking them if they felt this way, or if they know somebody that felt this way. That's how you get your healing. That's how you start the process. And it may not look that way to someone else, but you know it feels that way to you. Simple as that. So anxiety, what does anxiety look like to you? What does anxiety look like to you? Anxiety could look like you having an off day. Anxiety could look like you just feeling fearful. Anxiety could look like you feeling stuck, and you have too much ideas racing in your head, too much things going on in your mind that you can't function throughout the day. There should not be a single cookie cutter box way of describing how you feel. There's a lot of gray area in your life. We just have to keep talking about those gray areas, so that when you are going through an anxious moment, or you are having a panic attack, you may not be able to label it, but you're able to describe it. Make sure you're continually describing what anxiety looks like for you. That way you can get the help that you really need going forward. Simple as that. So if you're struggling right now with trying to figure out how to describe anxiety, I'm here to help you. It was not easy for me to describe it, but once I finally described it, if someone told me what was going on, it made my life a little bit easier, because there are ways to help you going forward. That is why you have to vocalize those emotions, even if you think they're tough to talk about. Who am I? I'm the Collab Coach. I focus on relationships, but not only intimate relationships with your friends, families, neighbors, co-workers, and the most important relationship of all, with yourself. Follow me on Facebook, Collab Coaching. Instagram, Collab Coaching. All my videos and series are on YouTube, Collab Coaching. COLAB Coaching. I have a wonderful podcast with my wonderful friend Jackie with Heart and Soul Podcast. You can find us on all podcast stations. If you can't find us, let us know. SoundCloud, we're on there. We are also on Instagram. DM us if you want us to talk about a specific topic. It's a relationship podcast. And also, I'm missing YouTube. We're on YouTube as well. Like and subscribe so you can see our lovely faces as we're recording the podcast.